We can't afford it, like, absolutely.
Already terribly constrained.
It's a specially close shave tonight for the General Director of the Royal Opera House. Jeremy Isaacs has been top man here since 1988. He retires next year. He's not had an easy ride. It's been open season on the Opera House recently, and the press has found it an easy target.
Is the guy from the Standard there?
No, we're going to leave him.
What?
We're not going to get him.
Can we get him tomorrow?
How much rests on tonight as being a success?
Nothing. You know, except the morale and feeling about the house. And we are here to entertain, we're here to perform. Therefore, everything rests on tonight being a success, because the whole point of our existence is to do good shows. But the next tonight will be tomorrow night, you know, I mean...
And it's the same routine every night for Ivor Arnold. During the day, he's on stage door security, but at the stroke of 6, he's off to his tiny office on the other side of the house. A quick costume change, and he's transformed into the Chief Commissionaire.
Tonight's jacket's my long tail coat. That's my long tail coat. And my red waistcoat, which goes underneath the coat here. Also, I have my bow tie.
Why are you wearing that?
Why am I wearing this? Because in the evening, I guess I've got to look official. You know? Somebody's got to look like the manager, and that's me. Mind you, these days, so few people wear dinner jackets that I feel slightly out of place. But I can't think of any other dress that would indicate manager. Maybe in the future I'll have a polo neck sweater or something. I must now open the theatre.
It's half an hour before curtain up. Trevor Jones will give the order to open the doors, but first he must check that the ushers are all present and correct.
Good evening, ladies. 19 and 2.
Good evening, 9 and 3, Mr.
9 and 3. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Will you now please enter the auditorium, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you.
I think one of our directors, Bamber Gascoigne, is in here tonight. I'll just see how he's getting on. He's entertaining some VIPs.
Members of the board can use the Royal Box and its retiring room to entertain their guests in style.
Oh, good evening, Bamber. We're just looking and saying, if you're all right. We're fine. Thank you. Good.
The cheapest seats are in the amphitheatre at the top of the house. It's up here that you find some of the most passionate fans.
So how often do you come here?
Oh, nearly every night. I don't come on Sundays, as I told you before. Oh, I must hold the record here for perhaps over the last 20 years, maybe, we've been coming.
Why did you first come to this place?
Eh?
What first brought you here?
Well, the death of my wife, really. I was wondering a couple of years now what to do. When I come here, I thought, well, I'll try here. I never know anything about it. And I love it ever since.
How can you afford it?
£2 a week is rather a lot. I mean, I can afford it. But the most I pay is for the opera. The common costs £7. See, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I haven't got a car, therefore I'm a rich man.
And where do you sit?
I always sit in what I call the lower slips, restricted view. There's 10 seats in the amphitheatre, and they're the nearest ones to the stage. But provided you don't get too near the stage, you're all right. Get number 10 and number 104. You've got the best seat in the house. I'm in 104 at the moment.
Hurry along now, please, ladies and gentlemen. The lights are about to go down. The lights are about to go down, ladies and gentlemen. Will you now please enter the auditorium? Thank you. Yes.
Tonight, the spotlight falls on Kenneth Macmillan's provocative ballet Meyerling. It tells a torrid tale of drugs, sex and violence. Adam Cooper and Leanne Benjamin are dancing the leading roles. Close encounters are not limited to the stage. While the performance continues, Ivor Arnold has had to call a meeting of his ushers. There's been a bit of argy-bargy with some latecomers.
If this happens again, don't touch them. Just stand in front of the door and say, "Excuse me, sir, I'm sorry, I'm afraid you can't go in." Now, if they push past you, you'll have to let them go through. You cannot stop them physically.
You can stop them without committing any...
Yes, you can stop them, you can try and put your arms out, but as for touching the patron, no, that is taboo.
Keeping the audience happy is a top priority, especially when they've paid a lot of money. But although tickets are expensive, they actually cover less than half the cost of putting on world-class opera and ballet. Jeremy Isaacs has to find the rest from two sources. First, from the taxpayer through a substantial grant from the Arts Council, and second, from private donations and sponsorship. His dilemma is that the taxpayer wants the house to be more accessible, but most sponsors are after something very different.
Quality, class, standards of excellence. That's what we're all about. Yes, I think I do get defensive if the press have been having a go at us for elitism or whatever, but then in the next breath I'll say to myself, well, hang on a minute, that's actually one of my biggest selling points, is that it's exclusive.
Felicity Clark sweet talks the wealthy members of the Trust out of more than £5 million a year. Today, the benefactors are being treated to lunch in the Crush Bar. There are individual donors, but there are also captains of industry who use the Opera House for corporate entertainment. For them, supporting the house can be a good investment.
We like it because it is elitist. That's why people like to come here. You're always conscious that there's a problem, that it's a very highly subsidised place, and the question is, should that subsidy be used to produce accessibility for people who otherwise couldn't afford to come here, or should it be used because this is good for British industry and affects the balance of payments? I think that's a very difficult question. The problem is that you feel instinctively that the public subsidy should be used to increase accessibility, but at the same time, not too much, because part of what makes this place special is that the audience is special.
A last-minute rehearsal of Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture. An unusual work for the Opera House, it will be the centrepiece of tomorrow's fundraising gala, an occasion when the house will unashamedly exploit its exclusivity to attract a very special audience.
Placido from the pit up here, so we have to call. He won't want to come, but try and get him.
The stars perform for free, and that's Placido Domingo on the rostrum. Tickets cost up to £1,750 each. The gala is completely sold out and will raise almost £750,000.
Fast,
in case you think I've been shopping at lunchtime.
The fundraiser-in-chief is Vivian Duffield, heiress to a footwear fortune and one of the richest women in the country. She's a member of the board and a powerful supporter of the house. The gala is her baby, and she's making sure it will all be all right on the night.
I'm serious, it's quite strong. We're bound to get a complaint for something.
It's very hard. It's only nature.
Snowflakes.
She's brought in her pet interior designer, Paul Dyson, to transform the crush bar.
And what's all that stuff? Paul!
Nobody in the Opera House dares to say no to Mrs. Duffield.
Do you know what those things are? The stars.
Oh, no.
Paul, would you like to come and tell me what they are?
I'm sorry.
Is that an extra for the budget?
What's this?
Those things.
No, nothing to do with you. Don't worry.
You mean nothing to do with us? What are they doing here,
No,
then?
you can't have those.
What are they?
They're just another job. It's just
Another job? Paul? In the middle of doing the Opera House?
Flowers, we're going on to the Royal Dining Room. Yes.
Oh, we quite like this. Paul? Oh, listen, it's late.
On a big night like this, protocol really matters. Who goes first? General Director Jeremy Isaacs or Chairman of the Gala, Vivian Duffield?
I don't know. Yes, there is.
There must be. Angus and Maura, you and Jocelyn, Jim and Margaret and us.
You must be before us.
No, well, we used to be. But
you used to be, you must be. Come on, Jeremy, you must be before. I don't like this false modesty.
Ask Mr. Jones. Here's all Tchaikovsky. Most of it, yes, it's in his honour. 100th anniversary of his death. God, this goes there. Not quite all.
The cream of British society is here tonight. This kind of audience will certainly raise the cash. But money is not everything. For its own good, the house must also be seen to attract a different clientele. One strategy is to put on sponsored performances for children. Every year there are several children's matinees. A normal matinee might bring in £50,000 in box office revenue. But these children pay only £5 each, which even with today's full house only covers a mere tenth of the cost. It may be good for the image, but you can't afford it without a generous sponsor. Children may love the tales of Beatrix Potter, but the ballet's less popular with the dancers.
Sorry? No, down here. It's all right.
Put it on.
Come on, you put that on.
Wow.
Oh,
beautiful.
It's scary under there, isn't it? Yeah, scary. You put it on. Put it on again. Can you see how it's Are you going to be a mummy? What is this?
They look just like the picture.
Mouse!
Vivian Duffield is one of the board members with responsibility for signing up sponsors for special events like the children's matinees. But it's getting to be a real struggle to persuade companies to part with serious money when their logo will not be paraded before the regular, well-heeled patrons.
We don't have a sponsor for next year's children's matinees. So I have to say that far from extending them, we might lose the whole lot next year. So I think it's a far more serious problem than just saying we should be filling with more. At the moment, we are critically involved in perhaps losing the whole lot. So I think it's wonderful to sit here and say how rosy everything's going to be. But unless this board and the trust, and I'm sure you don't mind my saying this, actually pulls its fingers out, we'll have nothing. And I think we must realise it's as much our responsibility to raise the money than to actually sit here and say, wouldn't it be wonderful? And I'm afraid we've really reached this point now with the children's matinees, which are wonderful, the best single thing we do in the house. But And they don't get cheaper, I'm afraid.
The fact is that we have a 2.2 million accumulated deficit, and if we do not earn the money, we're going to go down the chute.
If it does fall apart, all three companies run by the Royal Opera House are at risk. The Royal Opera, the Royal Ballet, here rehearsing Romeo and Juliet, and its sister company, the Birmingham Royal Ballet. Jeremy Isaacs spends a lot of his time worrying about money. There is a deficit and it must be reduced. The Arts Council wants him to balance the books by the end of the year. He has to listen to the Arts Council. After the box office, it's his biggest single source of income. And this is crunch time. Jeremy Isaacs is waiting for a call from Mary Allen of the Arts Council. She'll tell him just how much subsidy the house will get next year. There's been talk of a damaging cut.
Yeah.
Jeremy, it's Mary Allen on one.
Yeah. Mary?
Jeremy, good morning.
Morning.
I've got the news on your grant.
Uh-huh.
The total sum is £19,521,000, and that's a cash standstill on last year's figure.
That's very helpful, Mary. Thank you very much.
Can I just say two other things?
Is it broken out in relation to the three companies or not?
One thing. We haven't actually yet determined the division between the three companies, and we want to do that through the funding agreement negotiations.
Right.
But it does include £50,000 from our Great British Touring Fund for the mini tour by the Royal Ballet in 1995.
That's very helpful.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
So,
standstill, which is £370,000 better than we thought.
It still means they have to find big savings.
Yes, Jeremy.
Jimmy Clive Timms.
All right.
And as in any other business, the biggest savings can be made by reducing the salary bill. The Royal Ballet, for instance, has a permanent company of 85 dancers. At the end of the season, some will have to go. The older, more expensive dancers are first in the firing line.
So if I go into 94-5 without any provision for terminal payments, it either means we soldier on with dancers who we would rather have said goodbye to. Well, that's what it would mean.
If the careers of three senior artists end, the intention is that they would be gone by the summer, is that right?
Yes, it is. The difficulty always occurs, I mean, I hear what you're saying, because it's a trick that I've actually played to get the company from 80 to 85, is to try and reinvent the pyramid, because we had a sort of inverted pyramid virtually a few years ago. We had too much deadwood at the top, and we've now got a few people at the top and a lot at the bottom. And yes, the trouble is that there are people who probably would come up, but there would be a saving because the people that you would put up wouldn't jump up straight into those high shoes.
The end of the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet. In today's matinee, Juliet is played by Fiona Chadwick. As a principal dancer, she's near the top of the pyramid. She's 34 and joined the company when she was 18 years old. But her career with the Royal Ballet is about to be cut short. She's just been told that her contract won't be renewed. This could be the last time she will dance her favourite role on the Covent Garden stage. The rest of the company are up in arms about the way she's been treated. They've taken the unusual step of writing a letter of protest to the ballet board.
I was a bit worried by the letter that we all got on the board about Fiona Chadwick.
From Anthony?
Yeah, well, no, the letter we got from the members of the ballet.
Oh.
Have you not seen that?
I don't think I know about that.
Ah, well, the members of the ballet have written a letter, which I'll fax you a copy of, simply saying they're worried about Fiona Chadwick, who's a very good trooper, not having her contract renewed, number one, and they think she should. And number two, they're worried that she hasn't been well treated, i.e. not in only what we've done, but the way we've done it, doesn't appeal to them. And it was a very good letter. I spoke to Tessa about it, who is chairman of the ballet board, and she was slightly dismissive. But I wondered whether, it's obviously water under the bridge, and there's nothing one can or perhaps should do about it. But I wondered whether it had any effect on the spirit in the ballet company. And
as I understand it, a settlement either has been or is being reached between her and Equity are involved, and I think it will be dealt with amicably. But yes, it has unsettled the ballet company without any shadow of a doubt.
Word has got out of Fiona Chadwick's impending fate. Her reception is warmer than ever.
Emotions, given the day, what it is?
Well, it's just really exciting. It's really thrilling to be doing it again. Probably my last one, which is quite hard, but I loved it. Well, we all know that reason, because I've been asked to leave, so unfortunately, but that's the director.
Was that expected at all?
No, not at all.
What was it like being told?
Very difficult. I mean, a big shock, obviously, because I wasn't expecting it. And it's still really being sort of dealt with, so it's still quite early days as to what's going to happen.
What was the reaction of the company?
Well, quite markedly shocked as well, I think, as everybody sort of realised.
A dancer's life, I mean, is it short?
It depends on, who's in favour at the time, really. And obviously money comes into it as well. But one never knows.
Do you know how these decisions are made, or on what basis?
Personal opinions.
The last big opera of the season is Verdi's blockbuster Aida. This new production is less extravagant than usual. The backdrops are getting a first daub, and the painters are in a philosophical mood.
But this is a very satisfying, very rewarding job.
Is it therapeutic?
Oh, enormously. I mean, you can go through your whole life while painting this. Any problems you might have, you can discuss with yourself. I mean, this is the easiest part of the job, really, which you don't have to think.
Do you prefer that?
Well, it's rather nice because it's sort of like it's like part of a journey, isn't it? You start off the journey, you don't have to think about it too much, but just as you're nearing the destination, you have to start thinking a little bit more. And that's what happens with cloths. As they near completion, the thought process becomes stronger.
What size is this logo?
It wasn't too difficult to find a sponsor for a guaranteed crowd puller like Aida. P&O have put up $250,000. For money like that, they'll want the opening night to be a corporate showpiece. And they'll expect to see their logo prominently placed on all the publicity. The marketing department is bracing itself for a visit from the man from P&O.
I think the issues are probably going to be more about the size of their logo and the look of their logo on the poster, rather than the image itself.
Right. Okay.
There was a little bit of a hiccup. I had a call from Nicholas Payne, who called me over. Felicity, our director of the Trust, complained about the image. She felt it was too Christian Aid, rather than... This looks smaller than that, but the P&O is the same size if you compared the S to the P.
Well, I don't think that is. I think it's the flag that's been sized to them. That's a third down there. I think the flag should be taken as being an addition to the point size you standardise. But forget the standard. I just feel it's a bit apologetic for Okay. The scale of the event and the power of this poster.
Well, I think in this business, in the theatre, you get very cynical. It's a very cynical business, in my opinion. I mean, I've heard actresses and actresses they come off the stage and they said, well, wonderful, darling, wonderful, and all the rest of it. Then there she goes past City old cow. She's made a right fuss of that. And that's the theatre, I'm afraid. That's what it's... And this whole thing, let's face it, we're all in a game of illusion. It's not real, you know. But sometimes you get people in this place, they actually think that what we're doing on the stage is actually real, you know. Especially designers, you know, it's their sort of baby, their child, as if they just give them birth or something. So, I love it. I think it's great.
Jeremy Isaacs has no illusions about the future of the house. It's in the balance. To survive into the 21st century, the 19th century building needs to be totally revamped.
Yes. Okay.
There are now detailed plans for a massive redevelopment, which is due to start in 1997. The scheme will retain the famous facade and auditorium, but transform the backstage. There's to be a new studio theatre, new rehearsal rooms for the ballet company, a new foyer and high-tech scene-shifting machinery. It will cost £213 million. Vivian Duffield and Lord Sainsbury have pledged huge personal donations, as long as they're matched by other public sources. Jeremy Isaacs has got a beady eye on the new National Lottery. There's been a lot of opposition to the scheme. A row of early Victorian houses will be demolished, and some of the locals don't like the look of the new buildings. The protest is being orchestrated by one man, Jim Monaghan. Himself an architect, he's been a persistent thorn in the flesh of the Opera House. Today he wants to confront Jeremy Isaacs, who's heard it all before.
What can I do for you?
You've gone somewhere, you've got rid of the officers, which we're pleased about, as you know. But it looks like sin, and I can't believe that your board has analysed what actually the scheme looks like or how it works for you. And surely it'd be possible to get a scheme that we all would wish to see built, especially as you're going to try to get quite a large sort of section of the lottery money in order to build it.
I don't think we're going to get a large section of lottery money. We're going to get a handful of lottery money in a long queue in which a lot of other people are also going to get handfuls. But the fact is that the board is reasonably happy, we all are, with the present appearance of the scheme.
In my right mind, I cannot understand someone actually agreeing to an elevation like that. Just go down James Street and see what a nice selection of buildings
But this
that relates
isn't
to
James
the...
Street, this
No,
is
this is
Russell
not James,
Street.
this is Russell Street, and you're replacing it with this. With a chamfered corner, with a column of brickwork. I mean...
But you're not expecting us to put up mock Georgian, are you?
Certainly not, but I'm not expecting you to build something as hideous as this, especially as indicative of, I mean, it's so obviously rushed.
I don't accept that.
And when would they commission the architects to do this?
It's done in the fizz of creative inspiration. A lot of good work's done that way. But in any event, you're making what are wholly subjective judgments. I would rather accept the visual creation of Jeremy Dixon and Ed Jones than of you, frankly.
Rehearsals for Aida are now well underway. The man with the strangest view of it is Richard Farnes, the prompter.
S'intrecci. Sul crin. Nembo. Danziamo. Le mistiche. Come?
The plan is to demolish all the houses and shops on this side of the street. Jim Monaghan is lobbying local publican Jack Higgs. An angry man because in the new scheme, lorries will unload scenery immediately opposite his pub.
It does. And it's also staff. I've got 8 staff that live in, you see. That's their accommodation there. That's mine there. And then you've got the family next door on the Globe. Because obviously it must affect them too.
How many is that in all? About 18?
There's 5.
The Covent Garden Community Association meets tonight. With any luck, there'll be a chance to have a go at the Opera House and the architect.
Where my skyline.
Sorry, where do you live?
I live in 39 Bow Street, right opposite where the entrance to bring all the scenery is going to be coming in, which will be going on. It's bad enough now during the night, but it's a bit further up near the entrance to the opera when they unload all those big wagons all night. It's also in the narrowest part of Bow Street where you're going to put the entrance to bring the scenery in, I gather. Is that right, Mr. Architect?
The narrowest part of Bow Street?
Yes, where you're going to make the entrance to bring
it's a difficult point. It is not a very suitable idea for the Opera House to have its back door right next to its main foyers, and that was one of the problems in the previous scheme. There was exactly the same volume of building there in the previous planning approval.
No, you're going to take skyline away.
Sorry, it's exactly the same height. I can show you the drawing.
First of all, thank you for coming. And unfortunately, you gave it all away. The first people you consulted were the politicians, is what you said. Then you consulted the planners, and then you consulted English Heritage. But a week before the application actually is considered, you come and talk to us. Now you wonder why people get uptight. Now you wonder why the public don't support the Opera House. Your whole approach doesn't in any way engender public support of the Opera House. You desperately need it. Everybody talks about the Opera House as being elitist, which is, in many respects, stupid. But the way you behave, the people you go around with, the board that you have, and the way that you organise yourself, and the inability to be able to talk, take on board what people are saying, and actually openly say, we wish to work with you and to develop a scheme, is just paramount to saying, up yours, we'll get the 50 million from the Millennium Fund, and we'll build it come what may.
The Aida dress rehearsal, and there's another fight brewing. But for Jeremy Isaacs, there's a real battle in prospect. In order to rebuild the Opera House, they'll have to close it for nearly 3 years. He's determined to keep both the opera and the ballet performing in London throughout this period. But to do so, he'll need another subsidy over and above his substantial current grant. Tomorrow he has to put his case to the Arts Council. The accountants want to discuss tactics first.
So your approach would be to look at sort of concert-type opera in the Albert Hall, plus small-scale production opera.
No, I take the view, it's very simple, I take the view that in order to sustain the Royal Ballet in anything like a semblance of its current life, it has to have a theatre to dance in. If it has a theatre to dance in, which we have to rent for 20 or 30 weeks of the year, it will make as much sense to us and more sense to whoever owns the theatre to rent it to us for 50 weeks of the year. In the weeks of the year that we don't do ballet, we will do opera, and we will somehow find the cost of doing opera. And we cannot allow the Arts Council to keep ducking out of their responsibility to one of their principal clients to do the fantastic job we're doing. They can't just wash their hands of us. And if they do wash their hands of us, we will wash our hands of them. We'll have to go to government and say, you know, we can't get on being funded by the Arts Council any longer. Let us put our case to you. And if they turn their back on us, then we'd have to go to the City of London or somebody and do it. I mean, no other society would carry on like this. We would have to close down. We would be left with a bill of millions, and they would have to help with it. They cannot suddenly turn round and say, we have no public responsibility in this matter.
But over a 3-year period, if they wanted to look for the least cost option, I'm not saying anything else, but if they wanted to look for the least cost option, the least cost option is to tell us to close down.
Yes, exactly. But then that is like saying, fuck it, we don't want you anymore. I mean, what's the possible? You cannot provide the arts in this country on the basis of the least cost option. The least cost option is no art.
At the Arts Council the next day, the argument for more money to pay for closure is not going down well.
If you ask me to take £4.5 million worth or whatever the thing is to council now, they're going to laugh in my face.
But we're not asking you to do that. We're asking you to say...
On one side, Peter Gummer, soon to be appointed chairman of the Arts Council Lottery Board. On the other, Jeremy Isaacs, who needs an extra £4.5 million a year to keep his companies going while the house is rebuilt.
We're not asking for the money this year, Peter. We're asking for the money in 3 years' time.
We have been told that we have a standstill position.
We don't want to have 3 years in London without International Opera or the Royal Ballet. We need a bit of extra. Now, the people who built the British Library weren't slow in coming forward to government for the funds they needed to buy the build the British Library. Why should the Arts Council sit there saying year after year, thank you very much for telling us how much money we've got. Of course, we'll have to get by with that. You don't do that. You go to government and you say, give us a bit more.
Jeremy.
This is one of the reasons why you have to give us a bit more.
The government has told us that we can expect standstill funding for the foreseeable future. The alternative to getting more money from the government is that we have to remove it from organisations we already fund.
I think it would be helpful to us to know what it does cost if you do shut down, because I think there was an assumption in what James
said with the government, with the development, the 25 million that of cost. I think we should have that as a baseline.
The point I'm making is that actually it's not more expensive, it's much, much cheaper. It's an artistic disaster, of course, but it's much cheaper. It saves you probably 40 million over 3 years.
Yes. Well, can I just say something? What would happen then is you wouldn't have a new opera house. I mean, there's no way that John Sainsbury is going to put up one single penny if he sees closure. Absolutely no chance of any private donor giving one bean to a building. What they're giving it to is to enable the companies to survive and giving them the venue for the companies to survive. They're not interested in the bloody building at all, which has been neglected by the government for 50 years.
What is more, you talk about alarm and
you see, it's the companies they're interested in.
The fact, I thought that we were as partner. I mean, of course, Louis entitled to an answer to this question, and he shall have it. We all need to know what the answer to that question is. But the assumption of this meeting is that we're partners in something, and so we can't seriously consider an option which of course, with the £40 million you save, you could do a great deal for your other clients and destroy us. But you don't want to consider doing that. And if we thought you did want to consider doing that, it would be rather more difficult to talk to you.
I find it very difficult to really take the arguments without more figures, because people need figures, and we have been asking for figures on the closure for a long time. I think we need detailed figures. I know it's frustrating, I know it's boring, Jeremy, but you know, as Peter said, every single client has these problems and has special pleading in special cases. The point of this group is to try and really improve the relationship so we can work together.
Listen, if you can't help us, we'll find the money somewhere else. We'll just have to go either directly to government ourselves or to find some other way of doing it.
The Opera House team heads back to base, and the home side reflects on the contest so far.
And they slip away. They slip away through our fingers. You see, Jeremy gets so upset about it. I mean, he gets so upset, doesn't he?
Well, yes. Jeremy was being quite volatile today. I mean, more than I've seen him be for several months on this subject. But I think that's partly because we always said that we would make a commitment to them by the 1st of April, so long as they were able to give to us full costings by the beginning of January. Now, we haven't had that information, therefore we're not able to meet our side of the bargain. I think that he's getting anxious because he does need to make commitments to staff, you see, about what's going to be happening.
Lord Gowrie is not going to go running off and saying, I'm going to go and get a commitment from government for £4.5 million extra for 3 years' time to give Jeremy the comfort that he wants.
Right.
I mean, he just isn't going to do it. And frankly, I don't blame him.
Back at the house, they're dusting the old lady down for the opening night of Aida. The boxes will be full of the rich and famous, there to see and be seen. Most will be on their best behaviour.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, a lot of, from time to time, members of the public that book boxes use boxes for other things that they're not intended for. If I could be really crude about this, people tend to go into the boxes because they're secluded and away from the rest of the audience. and they get up to mischief, let's put it that way, in the boxes. Now, we had a situation the other night where we had to go to one of the boxes because we had a lot of complaints from members of the audience that happened to catch what was going on in the box. Well, all eyes were turned on the box, not on the stage. Come the interval, I had numerous complaints and I had to go and investigate what was happening. Well, I tapped on the door and the door wasn't opening at the beginning. I kept on tapping and eventually the door opened, and instead of looking at face level, the person was literally on the floor and the door was only pulled slightly and I could just catch a woman's face on the floor.
The Royal Box, of course, has its own retiring room with commodious ensuite facilities. Tonight, the sponsors, P&O, have paid for 400 seats and brought their midshipmen along to set the tone. They've also brought in their own caterers for a big do in the Crush Bar after the show.
Well, I mean, the P&O have sponsored this AIDA, and they have asked all their guests to come in black tie, and I am both their host and their guest, and it would be inconceivable if I didn't dress up for them. But actually, this is a night that's so important because it's a big night with AIDA, which, you know, that I would dress up for the show anyway, really. The last AIDA here I didn't see. But it was a disaster. It was one of the worst things that has happened. Some people think, oh God, I hope this is not going to fall apart. It was directed by Jean-Pierre Ponel. It starred Luciano Pavarotti. It was conducted by Zubin Mehta. And it didn't work, and Pavarotti bunked off in the middle of it, not feeling happy, complaining that the house was dusty or something. And it took quite an effort to get him back again some years later. AIDA is not an easy piece to do because what people remember about it is the spectacle and the great, great big tune, and my goodness, I'm looking forward to hearing that great, great big tune this evening. I know, see, this is one I haven't worn for ages and I've got no idea how it works. I mean, what men go through. Oh, I see, maybe it does that. And then that goes back in. Oh, yes, that's right.
Time can play tricks with the memory. In fact, 10 years ago, Pavarotti missed only one performance. Tonight, the sponsors have invited an impressive collection of movers and shakers. Like the Opera House, P&O needs friends in high places. At the interval, there's free bubbly from the sponsors for the great and the good.
This way? Yeah, we do. Thank you.
Jeremy Isaacs can do a bit of lobbying with the chairman of P&O and others.
Oh, these sponsors will stop at nothing. Oh, you wait. You wait. You see what's going to happen to Valkyrie. You wait to see what's going to happen. There's Norma. Norma? Come here, there's an old friend. You've been in the sun, Joe. I don't even garden. I get brand. Yeah.
Some months later, Jeremy Isaacs got another summons to the Arts Council. There he was told that the Royal Opera House would receive a total of £78 million from the National Lottery. Not surprisingly, this thrust the Opera House into the centre of yet another furious public row. However much Vivian Duffield, Lord Sainsbury and others may eventually donate, the House will still have to find more. They hope to raise £100 million through a public appeal. It looks as if the Royal Opera House has won its battle for a state-of-the-art house for the next century, but the struggle to win the support of the general public goes on. The story of the house that Jeremy once built is far from over.